The night shift at Forward Base Sentinel was supposed to be quiet. Lieutenant Stone walked the perimeter fence, checking the sensors one last time before her patrol ended. The moon cast long shadows across the compound, and the air smelled like metal and dust. Something moved near the supply depot. Stopped and watched. Three small shapes crouched by the fence, trying to squeeze through a gap in the wire. They were too small to be adults, too clumsy to be trained soldiers. She walked closer, making no sound. Her hand rested on her sidearm, but she did not draw it. The shapes froze when her shadow fell across them. They were cubs, alien cubs with fur that looked silver in the moonlight. Their ears pressed flat against their heads, and their eyes glowed like coins in the dark. One of them hissed at her. Knelt down slowly. The cubs backed up against the fence. The largest one, barely knee-high, stepped in front of the other two. It bared tiny fangs and swiped at her boot with its claws. The claws left 4 thin scratches on the leather. Laughed, she could not help it. The cub looked so serious, so ready to fight, even though it probably weighed less than her pack. The sound of her laughter made all 3 cubs flinch. "Easy there, little warrior," said. She kept her voice low and calm. "You are not getting through this fence, but you do not need to." She reached into her vest and pulled out her field rations. The cubs watched with wide eyes as she tore open the package. The smell of dried meat filled the air. Tossed a piece onto the ground between them. The smallest cub lunged forward, grabbed the meat and retreated. It ate so fast that worried it might choke. The other 2 watched, trembling with hunger. She tossed more pieces. This time all 3 cubs ate. They kept glancing at her, ready to run, but too hungry to leave. "When did you last eat?" asked, though she knew they could not understand her words. "A day, 2 days." The largest cub finished its portion and sat down. It stared at with those glowing eyes, not begging, just watching. Emptied her entire ration pack onto the ground. The cubs ate everything. When the food was gone, they did not run. They sat there in the moonlight looking at her. "Stay here," said. She stood up and walked to the gate. The cubs followed along the fence line, keeping pace with her. She opened the small personnel door and stepped through. The cubs scattered. "Wait," called. She knelt again and held out her empty hands. "I am not going to hurt you." It took 10 minutes before the largest cub crept back, then the middle one. Finally, the smallest came close enough for her to see the scars on its shoulder. They were cubs, had seen adult at the refugee camp on the north side of the base. Tall, proud beings with fur and claws and a way of walking that made everyone step aside. Their world had been destroyed 6 months ago by machines that killed everything in their path. These cubs were orphans. Led them to the security checkpoint. Corporal Lisa Grant looked up from her screen and froze. "Lieutenant, are those cubs?" said. "Hungry ones, can you get them water?" Lisa brought 3 canteens. The cubs drank until their bellies looked round. Then they curled up in the corner of the checkpoint booth and fell asleep in a pile. "What are you going to do with them?" Lisa asked. "I do not know yet," said, "but I am not sending them back out there alone." The next morning, Colonel Moore stood in her office and looked at the 3 sleeping cubs on the floor. The cubs had followed everywhere since the checkpoint. They would not let her out of their sight. "They are refugees, Lieutenant," Moore said. "Their people have a camp, they should be there." "With respect, Colonel, their camp is full of adults who cannot take care of themselves right now," said. "The lost everything. They are warriors without a war, parents without children, teachers without students. These cubs were starving 50 meters from our fence." Moore sighed. She was a practical woman who had commanded 3 bases in her career. She knew when rules needed to bend. "They have pride," Moore said. "If you just return these cubs, their elders will see it as charity, as pity. That might cause problems." "Then I will not return them," said. "I will train them." Moore raised an eyebrow. "Train them for what?" "To be warriors," said. "It is what they are supposed to become, right? They are a warrior culture. Let me teach these three. If their people see their cubs learning, growing stronger, maybe they will remember why they survived. Moore was quiet for a long moment. She looked at the cubs again. The smallest one woke up and yawned, showing needle-sharp teeth. "You have 2 weeks," Moore said. "If this causes trouble with the elders, it stops. Understood?" "Yes, Colonel." That afternoon walked to the refugee camp. They lived in temporary shelters that looked too small for their tall frames. Adults sat in the sun, staring at nothing. A few sharpened weapons that would probably never be used. No cubs played in the streets. Found the eldest, a male named. He stood when she approached, and she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "I have 3 of your cubs," said. She spoke clearly, using the translation device on her collar. "They came to my base looking for food. I fed them. Now I want to train them." His ears went back, his claws extended slightly. "You want to train cubs? You are human. You know nothing of our ways." "I know they were starving," said. "I know they have courage. The big one scratched my boot when I got close. It was ready to fight me even though I am 10 times its size." Something flickered in his eyes. Not anger, something else. "That would be," he said, "bold, foolish, like her mother was." Was asked. Looked away. "Dead, they are all dead. We saved 12 cubs when our world burned, 12 out of thousands. We do not know how to care for them here. We are warriors, not nursemaids, and we have no home to train them for." Heard the pain in his voice. She understood it better than he knew. "Then let me help," she said. "I can teach them discipline, how to work together, how to be strong." Why asked. Why would a human care about cubs? Thought about the way had stood in front of the smaller two. How had watched everything carefully before moving. How Myra had eaten first because she was the weakest. "Because they are children," she said, "and children deserve a chance to grow up." Stared at her for a long time, then he nodded once. 2 weeks, he said. "If you fail, if you make them weak, I will take them back. If you succeed," he paused. "If you succeed, perhaps others will learn from you as well." Walked back to the base with words in her head. She found the 3 cubs waiting outside her quarters. They ran to her as soon as they saw her, making small chirping sounds. Stood on its hind legs and put its front paws on her knee. Smiled and scratched behind the cubs' ears. "All right, little warriors," she said. "Tomorrow we start training, and I am going to teach you how to walk before you learn to run." Woke before dawn to find all 3 cubs sleeping on the floor next to her bed. Lifted its head when she sat up, ears swiveling toward her. "Time to work," said. The cubs followed her to the training yard. The sun was just coming up, painting the sky orange and pink. Had set up a simple course with markers made from supply crates. The cubs sniffed everything, curious but cautious. Started with the basics. She walked in a straight line and gestured for the cubs to follow. They did, but in a chaotic bunch, bumping into each other and stopping to investigate every smell. "No," said. She lined them up side by side. "Stay together, match your steps." She demonstrated again, walking slowly. The cubs tried to copy her, kept rushing ahead, stopped to look at birds. Myra could not keep up with her shorter legs. They trained for an hour before called a break. The cubs collapsed in a heap, panting. Gave them water and ration bars. They ate like they had never seen food before. "Tomorrow will be better," told them. But the next day was almost the same, and the day after that. The cubs had energy and courage, but they had no discipline. They did not know how to work as a team. On the 4th day, changed her approach. "This is a game," she said. She placed 3 ration bars at the end of the course. First one to the end gets the biggest piece. Bolted forward immediately, followed a second later. Myra ran as fast as her small legs could carry her. They reached the end in a messy scramble, fighting over the food. Blew her whistle. The cubs froze, ears back. "Wrong," she said. She collected the rations and returned to the start. "Try again, but this time you stay together. If one of you reaches the end first, nobody eats. Growled in frustration. But when started the exercise again, the cub slowed down. It kept looking back at the other two. Figured it out first. The middle cub matched pace with Myra, the smallest, saw what they were doing and adjusted speed as well. They crossed the line together. Gave them all equal portions. The cubs chirped happily, eating their reward. Something had clicked in their minds. Being together was better than being first. By the end of the first week, the cubs could walk in formation. They moved as a unit, adjusting to each other's pace without having to tell them. They learned hand signals. They learned to stop and wait when she raised her fist. Sergeant Danny stopped by the training yard one morning. He watched the cubs execute a turn in perfect unison. "That is something," he said. "How did you get them to do that?" "I made it worth their while," said. "They get what they want when they work together. They get nothing when they compete." Danny crossed his arms. "They are predators. Competition is in their blood. Are you sure you are not making them weak?" Called the cubs over. They sat in a neat row, looking up at Danny with bright eyes. "Show him what you learned yesterday," said. She tossed a ball across the yard. All three cubs took off at once, but they did not fight over it. Got there first, grabbed the ball and passed it to, carried it halfway back and gave it to Myra. Myra brought it to and dropped it at her feet. Danny laughed. "They are playing catch like human kids." "They are learning teamwork," said. "Cooperation is not weakness, it is strength." More soldiers started watching the training sessions. Some brought snacks for the cubs. Corporal Lisa Grant brought toys from the supply shipment. The cubs loved a rubber ball that squeaked when they bit it. The refugees noticed too. Saw them gathering at the fence, watching silently. Came every day now, standing with his arms crossed, saying nothing. On the 10th day, introduced combat training. She set up padded obstacles and showed the cubs how to climb, jump, and roll. Took to it naturally, moving with a grace that surprised. Was more careful but just as capable. Myra struggled with the higher jumps, but she never quit trying. Taught them how to use their claws properly, how to strike without losing balance, how to dodge and counter. She wore padded gear and let them practice on her. The cubs were rough but enthusiastic. They learned quickly. "You fight like you are dancing," told them. "That is good. Fighting is not about anger, it is about control." That afternoon, walked through the gate without permission. He crossed the training yard in long strides and his face showed displeasure. Stood her ground as he approached. "This is wrong," said. His voice was deep and harsh. "You are teaching them games. You are making them soft. Warriors learn through pain, through dominance, through proving their strength against their siblings." Met his eyes. "And how many of those warriors are left?" His claws extended. The cubs, who had been playing with the squeaky ball, went very still. "You dare?" "I dare to say what you already know," interrupted. "Your old ways died with your world. If you want your people to survive, you need new ways." "You know nothing of culture," snarled. "Nothing of what makes a true warrior." The cubs moved, had not called them, had not signaled them, but they left the ball and walked to her side, stood in front just like that first night, and Myra flanked her. All three faced with their ears forward and their small bodies tense. They were protecting. Stopped, he looked at the cubs, really looked at them, and something in his expression changed. "Do you see that?" asked quietly. "They are not fighting each other for dominance. They are standing together. That is what I am teaching them, not to be weak, not to be soft, but to be stronger together than they ever could be alone." She knelt and put a hand on his head. The cub leaned into her touch but never took its eyes off. "Your warriors were strong," continued. "But strength alone was not enough to save your world. You need warriors who can think, who can adapt, who can work with others, even others who are not." Was silent for a long moment. He looked at the training course, at the neat formation markers, at the three cubs who stood ready to defend a human they had known for 10 days. "Show me," he said finally. "Show me what else they have learned." Stood and gave a short whistle. The cubs immediately moved into formation. She led them through their drills, walking patterns, hand signals, the obstacle course, the teamwork exercises. Watched it all. His expression never changed, but his claws retracted. When the demonstration ended, had the cubs sit. They obeyed instantly, sitting in a perfect line. Discipline said, "Not through fear, not through pain, through trust. They follow me because they know I will feed them, protect them, make them stronger, and because they have learned that cooperation gives them better rewards than competition." Knelt down in front of the cubs, growled softly, protective of the strange human who had fed them and trained them. His ears went back in surprise. "This one has courage," he said. "Foolish courage, but courage nonetheless." "Is a good student," said. "So are in Myra, they learn fast, they try hard, they do not give up." Stood slowly. He looked at with something that might have been respect. "You have 12 more days," he said. "At the end of 2 weeks I will decide if this continues." He paused. "But I will tell the other elders what I saw today. Some of them have cubs as well. Cubs who sit in the camp doing nothing, learning nothing, becoming nothing." He turned and walked away. At the gate he stopped and looked back. "Teach them to be strong, human. Teach them to survive. But do not forget they will always be hunters, always be warriors. That is in their blood." "I know," said. "I am not trying to make them human. I am trying to make them the best version of what they already are." Nodded once and left. The cubs rushed to as soon as he was gone. They jumped and chirped, clearly pleased with themselves for being so brave, laughed and gave them each a treat. "You did good," she told them. "Really good, but tomorrow we work harder. There is still so much to learn." That evening, Lisa brought dinner to the training yard. She sat with while the cubs practiced their formations on their own, without being told. "You are doing something special here," Lisa said. "Those cubs trust you completely." "They trust me because I have not given them a reason not to," said. "That is how it should be with children, human or alien." "What happens after 2 weeks?" Lisa asked. Watched correct Myra's positioning with a gentle nudge. "I think we are going to need a bigger training yard." On day 13, arrived at the training yard to find 15 cubs waiting at the fence. And Myra were there, of course, but 12 others sat behind them, watching with curious eyes. Some were bigger than her original 3, some were smaller. All of them looked hungry for more than just food. Stood at the gate with a female. She was tall and with gray fur around her muzzle. Her eyes were sad. "This is," said. "She leads the mothers in the camp. She brought these cubs." Stepped forward. "The camp talks about your training, about how and the others walk like soldiers now, how they are learning to fight, to think, to work together." She paused. "Our cubs do nothing all day. They are becoming wild, forgetting what they are supposed to be. If you will teach them, we will bring them." Looked at the 15 cubs, then at her small training area with its simple markers and obstacles. "I need more space," she said, "more supplies and help." "Then you will have it," said. Colonel Moore approved the expansion that afternoon. She assigned engineer to design a proper training facility. Was a practical man who liked solving problems. "How many cubs are we talking about?" he asked. 15 now, said. "Maybe more later." Walked the area had been using. "We can extend this section, build platforms for climbing, set up a proper course, maybe add some covered areas for when it rains." "How long will it take?" 3 days if we work fast," said. "I will get a crew together." The construction team worked through the night. By the 3rd day had a real training ground. There were climbing structures made from salvaged materials, balance beams, jump platforms, a running course with obstacles, even a small covered shelter for breaks. The cubs explored everything immediately, chirping with excitement. Divided them into 3 groups, and Myra became group leaders. The other cubs followed them naturally, sensing they had more training. "You three know the drills," told her original students. "Show the others, help them learn." Took to leadership like it was born for it. The cub demonstrated formations with patience, correcting mistakes with gentle nudges instead of aggression. Was more quiet but just as effective, showing cubs how to navigate obstacles. Myra, the smallest, became the best teacher for the youngest cubs who struggled to keep up. Danny and Lisa Grant volunteered to help. Danny took the larger cubs and focused on strength training. Lisa worked with the smaller ones on speed and agility, moved between groups, watching, correcting, encouraging. The training program developed a structure. Morning formation drills for everyone together, afternoon sessions divided by ability, evening time for play and bonding. The cubs learned fast. Within a week, all 15 could walk in formation. Within 2 weeks, they could execute complex maneuvers. Adults started gathering at the fence every morning. They watched in silence as their cubs transformed from idle orphans into disciplined units. Caught crying one afternoon as the cubs completed a coordination exercise that required all 15 to work together. "We thought we lost this," said when approached. "Our culture, our ways. We lost so much when our world burned, but watching them now I see hope." "They are good students," said. "Strong, smart, fast learners." "They are alive again," corrected. "That is what you gave them, purpose, structure, a reason to wake up each morning. You gave them back their future." More cubs arrived the following week, 23 now, then 30. The training ground became crowded, but the cubs adapted. They learned to share space, to wait their turn, to help each other. Began attending training sessions. He did not interfere, but he watched everything. Sometimes he spoke to the cubs in their own language, giving advice that could not. The cubs responded to him with respect, but they looked too for approval. One morning pulled aside. "You have done something unexpected," he said. "You have made our cubs into a pack, not competing individuals fighting for dominance, but a true pack that hunts together, fights together, survives together." "Is that good or bad?" asked. "It is different," said, "but different is what we need now. Our old ways are not wrong, but they do not work for a people without a world. You are teaching them new ways while keeping their warrior spirit. That is a difficult balance." "They make it easy," said. "They want to learn, they want to be strong. I just give them the tools." Training expanded beyond physical drills. Started tactical discussions in the evenings. She presented problems and asked the cubs to solve them. How would you defend this position? How would you rescue trapped allies? How would you work with beings different from yourself? The cubs surprised her with their creative solutions. They thought differently than humans. Their predator instincts gave them unique tactical perspectives, but they also learned to consider teamwork and cooperation in ways traditional warriors never had. Built more structures, an elevated observation platform, a tunnel system for stealth training, a communications tower where cubs learned signals. The training ground became a small campus. Lieutenant Brandon Hayes, the base intelligence officer, visited one afternoon. He watched the cubs practice coordinated movements in silence. "Impressive," he said. "They move like real soldiers." "They are real soldiers," corrected. "Small ones, but real." Brandon's expression grew serious. "Can I speak with you privately?" They walked to the edge of the training ground. Brandon kept his voice low. "We detected Scourge scouts in the outer system," he said. 3 ships. They jumped away when our patrol approached, but they were mapping the area. Intelligence thinks they are looking for refugee populations. The specifically. Felt cold despite the warm sun. How long? Unknown, could be weeks, could be months, but they know something is here, and the Scourge do not scout unless they plan to attack. Looked at the cubs, 30 of them now running through obstacle courses and practicing formations. They were children, just children. "I need to accelerate training," she said. Colonel Moore is already preparing evacuation protocols, Brandon said. When the Scourge arrive, all non-combat personnel will be moved to shelters. That includes the Cubs. The Cubs will not go, said quietly. And the older ones, they see themselves as warriors now. They will refuse to hide. They are children, Brandon said. Tell them that, replied. Tell the culture that has raised warriors for 10,000 years. These cubs have been training for 2 months. They think they are ready to fight. Are they? Watched lead a squad through a tactical drill. The cub moved with confidence and precision. It gave clear signals. The others followed without hesitation. I do not know, admitted, but I know they will try, and I would rather they try with training than without it. She changed the afternoon schedule. More combat scenarios, more tactical discussions. She taught them about the Scourge, about machines that killed without mercy, about enemies that could not be reasoned with. The cubs listened with serious expressions. They were young, but they understood death. They had seen their world burn. That evening called a special formation. All 30 cubs lined up in perfect rows. The adults gathered at the fence, sensing something important was happening. You have learned much, said, her voice carried across the quiet yard. You can walk like soldiers, fight like warriors, think like tacticians. You have become strong, but strength is not enough. She walked along the lines, meeting eyes. Warriors must know what they protect, must know why they fight. You fight for each other, for the adults who survived with you, for the memory of those who did not. You fight so that cubs will have a future, so your people will not vanish from the galaxy. Stood at attention, tail perfectly still. The other cubs matched the stance. Hard times are coming, continued. Danger is coming. When it arrives, you will have a choice. Hide or stand, run or fight. I cannot make that choice for you. No one can, but I can make sure you are ready if you choose to stand. She stopped in front of. The cub looked up at her with glowing eyes. Are you afraid? Asked. Chirped once, a clear, firm sound. Good, said. Fear keeps you alive, but courage keeps you moving forward despite fear. That is what warriors have. That is what you have. She turned to address them all. Tomorrow we train harder, longer, we prepare for the worst, because that is what is coming, but we do not face it alone, we face it together, as a pack, as warriors, as family. The cubs barked in unison. Not a human sound, but a war cry that made the adults at the fence stand taller. Approached after the cubs dispersed for evening meal. Her eyes were wet. You are preparing them for battle, she said. For real battle, they are so young. I know, said, but the Scourge do not care about age, and your cubs will not hide when danger comes. You know that as well as I do. Looked at the cubs eating together, grooming each other, playing gentle games before sleep. We failed them, she said. The adults. We survived, but we forgot how to live. We saved them from death, but gave them nothing to live for. You gave them purpose again, structure, pride. You gave them back their warrior spirit. For that I will always be grateful, even if. She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Put a hand on his arm. I will do everything I can to keep them safe. That is my purpose now. That night sat in her quarters with Myra sleeping nearby. She cleaned her weapons, checked her gear, made plans. The cubs had become warriors. Now she had to make sure they survived being warriors. The alarms woke the entire base at 400 hours. Was already awake, standing watch with the cubs. She knew what the sound meant before the announcement came through her comm. All personnel to stations. Scourge fleet detected. ETA 6 hours. The cubs heard the alarms and formed up immediately. No commands needed. 30 sets of glowing eyes looked at in the darkness. Get to the shelter, said, now. None of them moved. Stepped forward and chirped firmly. The sound meant no. Had heard it enough times during training to recognize it. This is not training, said. This is real. The Scourge are coming. You need to get to safety. The Cubs held their formation. Other soldiers ran past, heading to defensive positions. The base transformed from sleeping facility to fortress in minutes and appeared through the chaos. Behind them came more adults, 30 of them, armed with whatever weapons they had. "Our Cubs will not hide," said. "Do not waste time arguing, we all know it is true." Colonel Moore arrived in full combat gear. She looked at the Cubs, at the adults, at standing between them. "Lieutenant, evacuation transports leave in 30 minutes, Moore said. "All non-combat personnel must be on them. That includes the Cubs." Colonel started. "I know," Moore interrupted. "I know they will not go, but we must try. The refugees inland need to get to the southern shelters. The transports will take them through the Valley Pass. It is the only route." Understood immediately. The Valley Pass was defensible but vulnerable, perfect for an ambush. "You need escorts." "Every soldier I can spare," Moore confirmed. "But we are stretched thin defending the base. If the Scourge attack the convoy—" "I will take a team," said. "The Cubs know the drills, they have trained for this." "They are children, Lieutenant." "Yes, Colonel. Children who will fight whether we allow it or not. Better they fight with support than alone." Moore looked at the Cubs again. They stood perfectly still, perfectly disciplined. Soldiers in small bodies. "God help us," Moore said. "All right, you have command of the escort mission. Take whoever volunteers, but keep them alive, keep them all alive." The convoy formed up quickly. 20 transport trucks carrying refugees, mostly civilians and younger Cubs. Danny and Lisa Grant volunteered immediately. 6 more human soldiers joined them. 30 trained Cubs, 20 adult warriors. It was not a large force, but it had to be enough. "Brief them quickly. The Scourge will target the convoy, we know this. They want to eliminate survivors. Our job is to get everyone to the southern shelter. That is the only mission that matters." Chirped a question. Had learned to understand the basic sounds. "Yes," she answered. "We stay together, no individual heroics. We work as one pack." The convoy moved out at 5:30 hours. Dawn was breaking. Rode in the lead vehicle with and Myra. The other Cubs were distributed throughout the convoy in tactical positions they had practiced dozens of times. The Valley Pass was 20 kilometers away. They made good time for the first 10. Then the sky darkened with Scourge attack ships. "Contact," Danny's voice crackled over the comm. 3 ships coming fast." The transports accelerated, but they were slow, heavy vehicles. The Scourge ships were built for speed and killing. "Defensive formation," ordered. "Protect the transports." The Cubs moved with precise coordination. They had trained for this exact scenario. The older Cubs took positions on the vehicle roofs, claws extended, ready to fight. The smaller Cubs stayed inside, ready to evacuate civilians if needed. The first Scourge ship opened fire. Energy beams cut through the morning air. One transport took a hit and swerved but kept moving. "Return fire," Lisa called. The human soldiers used everything they had. Small arms fire, shoulder-mounted rockets. It was like throwing rocks at metal giants. But they were not alone. The warriors showed why their people had been feared. They moved with lethal grace, climbing on vehicles, leaping between transports, creating a moving shield around the convoy. When Scourge drones descended to board the trucks, they tore them apart with claws and teeth. The Cubs fought too, not wildly, not recklessly, but with the discipline had drilled into them. They worked in groups of 3 just like training. One distracted, one struck, one covered. They were small, but they were fast and smart. A Scourge ship landed ahead, blocking the road. Machines poured out more than could count. "We cannot go through," Danny shouted. "Then we go around," replied. She grabbed her comm. "All units follow my vehicle. We take the ridge path." The ridge path was narrow and dangerous, but it was the only option. The convoy turned, trucks struggling on the steep terrain. Scourge machines followed. They were relentless, emotionless. They existed only to kill. A group of drones surrounded one transport. The cubs inside that truck were young, barely able to fight. Saw them through the window, pressed against the glass, terrified. She called, "Take your squad." Did not hesitate. The cub leaped from his vehicle, landing on the hood of the surrounded transport, and Myra followed. Behind them came 9 more cubs, moving as one unit. They hit the drones like a storm. Small bodies became weapons. Claws that had taught to strike with precision found gaps in machine armor. The cubs remembered every lesson. Strike and move, never stay still, protect each other. The drones fell. The transport kept moving. But more machines came, always more. "We are not going to make it," Lisa's voice was strained. "There are too many." Looked at the convoy, at the scared refugees, at the cubs fighting with everything they had, and the adults holding the rear against impossible odds. She made a decision. "All trucks full speed to the shelter," she ordered. "Do not stop for anything." "What about you?" Danny demanded. "We will buy you time," said. She switched channels. "All combat units form up on me. We make a stand here." The transports accelerated, engines roaring. The fighting units pulled back, creating a defensive line across the road. 30 cubs, 10 human soldiers, 20 warriors. Against hundreds of scourge machines. "This is suicide," Lisa said, but she took her position anyway. "This is duty," corrected. He stood beside, claws extended. "We hold until they are safe." The cubs formed their groups. They did not look afraid. They looked determined, had taught them to be warriors. Now they had to be heroes. The scourge charged. The battle was chaos. Energy, fire, and screams, and the sound of metal tearing. Fought with everything she had. Beside her moved like liquid death, small but unstoppable. Protected the younger cubs with calculated precision. Myra, the smallest, darted between machines twice her size, striking vital spots had taught her to find. They held. Minutes felt like hours. The defensive line bent but never broke. A scourge drone got past the line. It aimed at a cub, too young, too slow. Threw herself forward, taking the energy blast meant for the child. Pain exploded through her shoulder. She went down hard. Myra was there instantly. The small cub stood over, hissing at any machine that came close, and joined, forming a protective circle. Other cubs filled the gap had left in the line. "Lieutenant," Danny's voice, "talk to me." "Still here," she gasped. The pain was terrible, but she could move. She could fight, keep the line. Appeared above her. The old warrior fought with fury, his claws ripping through machine armor. "You do not die today, human. You have cubs to teach." The cubs fought harder, not with rage but with purpose. They remembered words. Warriors protect. Warriors serve. Warriors stand for those who cannot stand for themselves. The scourge wave finally broke. The machines retreated, regrouping for another assault. But that assault never came. Overhead, human fighters screamed past, engaging the scourge ships. Reinforcements had arrived. The scourge calculated odds, and they were machines. They did not value victory over survival. The battlefield went quiet except for the sound of engines in the distance. Lay on the ground, Myra still standing guard over her. The cub's eyes glowed with concern. "I am okay," said. She sat up slowly, pain shooting through her shoulder. Lisa was there immediately, applying field treatment. "You are insane," Lisa said. "Completely insane." "Did the transports make it?" asked. "Every single one," Danny confirmed. "All refugees safe in the shelter. 0 casualties among the evacuees." Looked around at her team. Some wounded, all exhausted but alive. The cubs gathered around her, chirping softly, checking on each other, grooming wounds, supporting the tired ones. They had fought their first real battle, and they had won. Knelt beside. His fur was burned in places, his claws chipped from fighting metal. "You taught them well, human," he said quietly. "They fought like true warriors today, not because they were forced, not because they were trained, but because they chose to protect others. That is the highest form of warrior spirit." Arrived with medical teams. She saw the cubs, exhausted and wounded but victorious, and fell to her knees. "My children," she whispered, "my brave, foolish children." The cubs went to her, even the oldest ones. They needed comfort after the horror they had witnessed, gathered as many as she could in her arms, crying openly. Watched through hazy vision. The pain in her shoulder was getting worse. "Stay with me, Lieutenant," Lisa said. "Medical transport is coming." The cubs said, "Make sure someone takes care of the cubs." "They will take care of each other," Danny said. "You taught them that." Smiled. Then darkness took her, woke in the medical bay 3 days later. The first thing she saw was 30 pairs of glowing eyes watching her from around the room. The cubs had refused to leave. They had taken shifts, some sleeping while others kept watch. When opened her eyes, they all chirped at once, a sound of pure relief. "Easy," she said, her voice rough. "I am okay, just wounded." Climbed onto the bed carefully, avoiding her injured shoulder. The cub touched its nose to his cheek, a gesture of affection. "I know," said, understanding without words. "You were brave, all of you were so brave." Colonel Moore entered with medical staff. She looked tired but pleased. "Welcome back, Lieutenant," Moore said. "Or should I say Captain now?" "Captain," asked. "Field promotion," Moore explained. "Effective immediately. Your actions saved 200 refugees and proved that cross-species cooperation works under combat conditions. High Command was impressed." Tried to sit up, pain flared, but she managed it. The cubs fought well. "They fought excellently," Moore agreed. "Which brings me to why I am here. The Galactic Coalition wants to meet you. Representatives arrived yesterday. They want to discuss your training program." 2 hours later, stood in a conference room with her arm in a sling. The cubs waited outside, too many for the small space. Admiral George represented the coalition, a human with silver hair and sharp eyes. "Captain Stone," he said, "I reviewed the battle reports. Your cubs performed better than some veteran units I have seen. How did you do it?" "I treated them like students, not weapons," said. "I taught them to think, to work together, to understand why they fight. They are strong because they trust each other." "The galaxy is full of refugee species now," said. "The scourge has displaced millions. Many are warrior cultures like the young ones with no direction, no training, no hope. What you did here could be replicated." "Thought about that. It would take resources, staff, proper facilities." "You will have them," said. "The coalition is prepared to fund a training academy, multiple facilities across several worlds, but we need you to lead the program, develop the curriculum, train the trainers." "I am just one person," protested. "You are the person who turned 30 orphaned cubs into warriors in 2 months, countered. "You are the person they would die for. That kind of leadership is rare, Captain. The galaxy needs it." Looked out the window. She could see the training yard from here. The cubs were practicing formations without her, teaching each other, correcting mistakes. "I will do it," she said, "but on certain conditions. The training must balance strength with compassion. Warriors must protect, not conquer. And we never forget that they are children first, soldiers second." "Agreed," said. He extended his hand. "Welcome to the Coalition Training Command, Captain Stone." The next month passed quickly. Engineers built a permanent academy on Prime. Real buildings replaced temporary structures, proper classrooms, training halls, simulation rooms, living quarters for students and staff. And were appointed co-directors. They worked with to blend warrior traditions with human tactical theory. The result was a program unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Other species started arriving, not just but refugees from a dozen worlds, young ones who had lost everything and needed purpose, adapted her methods for each species. What worked for predatory needed adjustment for herbivorous. What taught social hunters had to change for solitary survivors. But the core principles remained: trust before fear, cooperation over competition, understanding why they fought. Danny became head of physical training. Lisa Grant ran tactical education, designed facilities for different species' needs. The academy grew. They held a ceremony 6 months after the battle. The entire community gathered in the large hall they had built from salvaged materials, stood at the center with, and Myra beside her. Carried 3 small vials filled with dark ink, warrior marks. He approached first. "You are not," he said formally, "but you have fought beside us, bled with us, taught our cubs to be warriors again. By our oldest laws, that makes you family, that makes you pack." He dipped a claw in the ink and drew 3 lines on his right arm, the traditional marks of a warrior instructor. The entire hall chirped approval. Then it was the cub's turn. Stepped forward standing tall, painted the marks of a proven warrior on the young's shoulder, received the marks next. Then Myra, smallest but no less deserving. The 3 cubs touched noses with, officially making her part of their pack. Felt tears in her eyes but did not hide them. "You honor me," she said to the assembled, "all of you. I came here to teach, but I learned just as much. You taught me about courage, about surviving when everything is lost, about choosing to live instead of just existing." Approached with 30 small tokens, one for each cub who had fought in the battle. "These belong to you," she said to, "tokens of pack. Each one represents a cub who followed you into fire, who trusted you with their life, who became a warrior because of you." Accepted the tokens. They were simple things carved from bone and stone, but they meant everything. 1 year after the first battle, the academy graduated its first class. 60 young warriors from 8 different species. They walked in perfect formation across the main yard, executing drills with precision. Their families watched with pride. Stood at the front of the students, leading them. Commanded a mixed-species tactical unit. Myra taught the youngest cubs, passing on everything had taught her. Admiral attended the ceremony. "You have done something remarkable here, Captain. These young warriors will change how the galaxy approaches training. Several coalition worlds want to establish similar academies." "Then we will help them," said. "Send staff, share curriculum. This should not be rare, this should be normal." The years passed. The academy became famous. Warriors trained there went on to defend colonies, rescue refugees, and prove that different species could work together. The methods developed became standard across coalition forces. More academies opened on different worlds. Visited them all, training instructors, refining methods, always learning. But Prime remained her home. The first academy. The place where 3 desperate cubs had scratched her boots and changed the course of her life. 5 years after that first night, walked the training yard at dawn. She was older now, with gray in her hair and scars on her arms, but she still woke early, still checked on her students. Movement at the gate caught her attention. Approached, no longer a cub but a full-grown warrior. Beside walked 2 small cubs, barely old enough to leave their mother. "Teacher Stone," said in clear human language. Years of practice had made communication easy. "I bring my cubs to train. Will you teach them as you taught me?" Knelt down to look at the young cubs. They watched her with curious eyes, unafraid. One of them reached out and pawed at her boot, leaving small scratch marks on the leather. Laughed, the same laugh from that first night 5 years ago, the same joy in seeing young warriors finding their courage. "Yes," she said, "I will teach them to walk before they run, to think before they fight, to protect before they conquer, just like I taught their parent." The cubs chirped happily, made a sound that might have been a laugh too. "They will scratch your boots often," warned. "They are fierce ones." "Good," said. "The fierce ones become the best warriors, once they learn discipline." She led the cubs into the training yard where other young ones were gathering, students from a dozen species. Some had fur, some had scales, some had skin like humans, but all of them were here for the same reason: to learn, to grow, to become warriors who protected instead of destroyed. Danny walked over with morning reports. "We have 40 new students starting next month, Captain. Coalition is sending observers again. An admiral wants you to consult on 3 new academies opening in the eastern sectors." "Tell him yes," said, "but I want to visit each one personally, make sure they understand the principles." "You cannot be everywhere at once," Danny pointed out. Watched begin teaching the young cubs basic formations, exactly as she had once taught. Worked with older students on tactical scenarios. Myra ran the administration office now, organizing schedules with ruthless efficiency. "I do not need to be everywhere," said. "I taught them to teach. They will spread the lessons further than I ever could alone. That is how you change the galaxy, one student at a time, one pack at a time." Lisa joined them, carrying training equipment. New simulation software arrived. "Want to test it this afternoon." "After morning drills," agreed. "The basics never change, even with new technology." The training yard filled with students as the sun rose higher. Commands in multiple languages. Cubs running formations alongside scaled reptilians and winged avians. Warriors of different species working together, learning from each other. A human observer from another colony watched with amazement. "I have never seen anything like this," she said too. "How did you make it work?" Smiled and gestured at the training yard. "I did not make it work, they did. I just showed them it was possible. The rest came from them, their courage, their willingness to trust beings different from themselves, their choice to protect instead of dominate." She paused, watching cubs tumbling with a calf and a human child, playing together before serious training began. "Warriors are not born from violence," continued. "They are born from purpose, from understanding what they stand for, from bonds stronger than fear. That is what I taught them. And they taught me that species does not matter. Strength comes from what you choose to protect, not what you can destroy." The observer left to write her report, returned to the training yard. Work was never finished here. There were always more students, more challenges, more chances to teach young ones how to walk like warriors. Smallest cub ran over and grabbed hand with tiny paws. The cub tugged, wanting to show her something on the obstacle course. "All right, little one," said following, "show me what you learned." The cub climbed the first platform and turned back, waiting for praise, nodded approval. "Good. Now remember, we walk before we run, we think before we fight, we protect before we conquer. Can you do that?" The cub chirped firmly, "Yes." "Then you will become a fine warrior," said. "Just like your parent, just like all the cubs who came before you." She looked up at the academy buildings, at the training yard full of students, at the flags representing 12 different species flying together. This place had started with 3 desperate cubs and 1 human who laughed instead of turning them away. Now it was changing the galaxy. And it all began because Stone had knelt down, shared her food, and decided that children deserved a chance. No matter what species they were, no matter where they came from, no matter how small and scared they seemed. Warriors were born from compassion first, discipline second. That was the lesson. That was the legacy. And it would last as long as students kept coming to learn how to walk like warriors.